So if we think about transition of leadership in an acquisition, all right, the situation that both the buyer and the seller are least prepared for in any acquisition is also the one that predicts either longer term success or short term failure, is how the owner and the seller and the buyer handle the transition of leadership away from the former owner to the new leadership of the business. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where I talk about the real and practical changes and issues that you as the owner will face after selling your business. And these are all based on my 20 years of working with companies from across the country after they've been acquired. These are all real situations that I personally experienced, and these happen all the time. So transition of leadership sounds pretty straightforward, right? Pretty clean. But to someone who's never experienced this, it is going to be anything but straightforward. All right, let's go through an example. First off, what makes a good leader? Maybe a passion for what they're doing. They're emotionally bought into what they're doing and the why they're doing it. They're visionary. They're able to inspire others to their vision. They make positive emotional connections with the people on their team. They're a great communicator. You know, the list goes on, but you get the point. So you as the owner must have all of these and many more to start, build, and grow your company, right? You're the brand, as they say, the heart and soul of the company, and the people work for you more than they do the company itself. And when you sell, the people will not show the same loyalty to the company as an entity or to the new buyer. Okay, they just won't. The loyalty was to you. So the question is, how do you, as the owner who sold your business and is probably thinking about retirement or the next thing you want to do, transition everything you represent to someone else? So here's the dilemma. Usually the visionary leader that started, built, and grew the company isn't the same person as someone who manages the business day to day, the operations. You know, they need that complementary personality. So you end up with the visionary leader and the operationally minded manager, right? You see it all the time. It's very common. So when this visionary leader sells the business, the assumption from the buyer and from the outside is this complementary manager will naturally take over and become the new leader. Why not? I mean, they're the right-hand person. They've been there. They see everything. They've been involved with everything. They know exactly how the business operates. So it makes total sense that they should take over as the new leader. Doesn't happen 100% of the time, but it is very, very common. Then what happens? Well, usually the exiting leader wants this manager to be successful and tries to impart everything they know to this person. And for the first year or so, everything seems to be going okay. Then as this exiting leader gets closer to actually leaving the business, say around 18 months to 24 months, they start transitioning more and more to their manager counterpart. Again, this seems to be going fairly well until you start to see significant differences between the visionary leader and the operational manager. The business stops growing. It doesn't shrink, but it doesn't grow. Costs are under control as expected, but as they lose a few customers here and there, maybe a few employees, the costs start to drag down profit because the revenue isn't growing. The business starts to flatten, and nobody really knows why. You put this in context of a buyer who is probably what you'd call a fast growth buyer, a fast growth company. And what a fast growth company is going to be a different video. But when you look at it in this context, the problem becomes glaring, all right, to the point where the new ownership starts leaning on this manager leader, pushing them for growth. Well, then what happens? Well, this operational manager who assumed the visionary leader role starts feeling the pressure, and guess what they do? Well, since managers manage things and processes, they start treating people like things to manage, right? Well, then what happens? Well, the employees who were used to being led now find themselves in a situation where they're being managed, and they don't like that. It's different. And this is when it starts to get uncomfortable very, very quickly. The buyer wants growth. The manager can't produce. The employees feel the pressure that they don't like and they don't really understand. The financial team starts dissecting the data, trying to find, quote, the problem. And trust me, they will find something that they can point to and prove with data they think is the problem. Everybody starts managing and nobody is leading. And this is so simple to see, and yet it's so common. The funny thing is, if you bring the visionary leader who sold the business back in to figure it out, they'll figure it all out within probably less than a day, and they'll be exactly right. Leadership transition is not rocket science, but it does take experience and confidence to guide through it. And it's one of the biggest problems so many companies deal with after acquisition, simply because they're not prepared for it. Look, I can't give you the answer to your specific situation in a video because each situation is unique, but this is at the core of what I've been doing in my career for well over 30 years and something I've been successful with, helping teams navigate leadership transition. And it's what I've been doing for almost 20 years, working with companies after they've been acquired. And it's why I started my business, Ownership Transition Advisors, to help buyers and sellers navigate the transition of leadership so both sides end up with a successful business. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in learning more about how I might be able to help you in your situation, you can always send me an email through my website. You can message me here on LinkedIn. The links are always going to be below. And we can usually decide in a 15-20 minute phone call if it makes sense to work together with your situation. Thanks again. We'll see you next time when I'm going to talk about how the change in power and authority can affect the success of an acquisition. All right, we'll see you next time.